Ryan Connolly, Seth Worley, Vincent Laforet, Jim Cummings, arguably some of the most talented, respected, and influential independent filmmakers today. But what do they think of their own past work? Stay tuned. Josiah here with Real Difference Film School, the show that teaches indie filmmakers just like you how to make your film into a real difference. Now, this past week, I had the unique opportunity of getting to go to a premiere of The Cold Season, our latest short film. It was absolutely amazing, sold out crowd, but what really stood out to me is in a question and answer session afterwards, I just kind of made an offhand remark that as filmmakers, as soon as we're finished with a project, we see everything that we've done wrong with it. We see all the things that we would do differently. And it was interesting looking around the room and everybody was nodding. It was a room full of filmmakers and everybody was nodding in agreement, kind of chuckling at this revelation that, yeah, you're right, that is what we do. And it was really interesting to me. It kind of got me thinking. I thought, what about the filmmakers that I truly respect and look up to? People like Ryan Connolly, Vincent Laforet, Noam Kroll, all these amazing filmmakers, looking up to them. What do they look at their own past work in the same way? Do they see the same masterpiece that we do, or do they see everything that needs to be improved? So I embarked on a little mission to find out. I reached out to these filmmakers and actually heard back from a surprising number of them, which I was absolutely thrilled by, and I would love to share their words of wisdom with you today. So we're going to start with Noam Kroll, an incredible filmmaker and blogger. If you haven't read his blog, I'm sure you've come across an article before if you haven't heard about him, but Noam Kroll, this is what he said. He said, "The only thing I see are the mistakes. I can barely even stand to watch my own movies with an audience. It can take years to make something that you're proud of. I'm finally getting there, but it's been a very long road. Everyone's self-doubts, just know that it is part of the process." So the next response I got was from director Seth Worley. And if you haven't heard of him, he is a director at Red Giant and is also the incredible filmmaker behind the short film Real Gone. He said that my response to seeing my own films changes with every viewing. I tend to somehow rewatch my own stuff spontaneously every couple years, and it seems to flip-flop every time between being delightfully surprised by how good it was and being utterly depressed that I released it, saying, "Look at this." The next response is from the man Ryan Connolly himself. He's actually the one who kind of inspired me to take up filmmaking as a career myself. So it's somebody I've been following Film Riot for ages, back from the early days of Film Riot, and if you don't know who it is, you've been living under a rock, because this guy is absolutely amazing. Also extremely prolific filmmaker. He documents the films that he makes as well. Films like Ghost House, Proximity, Sentinel, UFO Yeah, Ballistic. I mean, the list could go on and on and on. This guy's made some amazingly entertaining stuff and is definitely somebody worth checking out. So he said, "It's amazing to hear that you don't see the flaws, but for me, I only see the flaws. I don't think any filmmaker is ever satisfied with what they create. But you can be proud and love it all the same. I'm making mistakes, learning from them, and trying to do better with the next one." The next filmmaker I heard from was actually a guy in the studio system himself, so not necessarily in the indie filmmaking world, and somebody who, a British filmmaker with quite a following, Duncan Jones, the director of Source Code, Warcraft, Mute, Moon, just to name a few. And he said that I have yet to make the film I initially see in my head. Now, this is somebody who's an extremely prolific and extremely accomplished filmmaker. "I have yet to make the film I initially see in my head. Every film is your aspiration, at the top of a flight of compromises, and making the film is trying to fall to the bottom of that flight of compromises without breaking your neck." I thought that was a really nice analogy for what it's like making a film and constantly having to compromise on all these different things without breaking the initial, the core of the film, the heart of the film. Next, Vincent Laforet, Pulitzer Prize winner with his amazing photography and 3 times Cannes Lion Award winner. He said, "Unfortunately, I do see every little flaw. It usually takes me 2 to 5 years to take a step back and appreciate the work that the team did, because you never do it alone, and that collaboration is what you look back on most fondly." A film family, right? Basically, I try to release the best product I can with the fewest flaws possible. We all try to do our best while being aware of our flaws. Enjoy the process at the end. Don't focus on the end result so much, and you'll see that doing so actually makes the entire experience and result better. I thought it was interesting that it takes him really 2 to 5 years to really be able to appreciate his own work. Filmmaker Salomon Ligthelm, the filmmaker behind amazing film Anomaly, also one of my inspirations, he said that he even removes his own work every few years because he doesn't feel like it accurately represents him anymore. And as soon as he's finished with it, he realizes that it's already outdated. So I'm sure you can see kind of the thread here of filmmakers, even at such an accomplished level, still being very self-critical of their own work. Jim Cummings, who recently with Thunder Road, I'm sure you've seen the name, it's been absolutely blowing up here lately in theaters all around the world. It won at Sundance, at Cannes, in South by Southwest. I mean, this is literally one of the top, if not the top, independent filmmaker currently in the world today. And this was his response. I just love the way it was worded, and I think this is a beautiful place to kind of wrap together these quotes. He said, "You always see things in your film that you would do differently and better. Start thinking of that as beautiful. It is because you have just learned and grown as a filmmaker. Those feelings are positive. Just make sure that you don't feel it while you are making the film." I think it's a beautiful way of looking at it, that you always are going to learn through making your films. It's probably actually a bad thing. If you're 100% satisfied with your past work, it means that it didn't really stretch you creatively and force you to grow. That tension between what we see in our heads and our effort to do it justice, that's what pushes us to keep creating. We're in an industry where by very definition, our work is critiqued and criticized by basically everyone. Noticing these mistakes just means that we're growing as a filmmaker, and it's actually a really positive sign. I found it really eye-opening and encouraging to hear that these filmmakers, they don't even think that they're close to perfect. And these are people that I highly, highly respect and whose work I would probably say is as close to perfect as one could possibly get. They're still growing and improving and trying to get to a point where they're satisfied with their own work. To kind of tie together all those responses from the filmmakers, I think something that we can really work on, all of us together, is not so much focusing on all of our flaws and just seeing our flaws, but really focusing on how far we've come, shifting our perspective to the positive. That's going to be our challenge this week. We'll call it our Real Difference Rewind Challenge. Go back to your very first film, your very first video, rewatch it, and compare it to your work today. Find the biggest difference between your work then and your work now, and see how much you've grown. I promise you, you will be encouraged. That wraps up our video for today. Until next time, keep it real.